Okay, so part of being frugal and part of frugal living, at least for myself, is always knowing that I live in a world of choices. I could choose to spend more money on something to arrive at a certain goal, or I could choose to spend less money on something and arrive at the same goal. The outcome is exactly the same, but the money cost is not. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jan. Welcome to another episode on this channel, the Save Money and More with Jan channel. How you doing today? Hope everyone is doing well. Right now, as I record this, 1 week prior to when you're listening to this, it just happens to be 5:24 a.m. in New York City. I'm just saying, I hope everybody is doing well as usual. Now, I'll give you here's an example. All right, pizza. Now, I briefly touched upon that approximately a week ago on video, and I talked about how we could spend money from the sublime to the ridiculous on pizza, and it's true. It's true. For example, just the cost of a plain cheese pizza in the city is anywhere post 26 to 30 something dollars for one. Not even kidding you. I'm not saying it's not delicious. Although sometimes I've tasted better, and then sometimes I'm like, did I really spend that much money on that? What I like to do is try to buy it first by the slice, because if I don't care for it by the slice at a certain restaurant, if I've never tried it before, then I know, well, why would I want to buy a whole big one for a ton of money? There's an example of utilizing frugal choices. I didn't deprive myself of that so called excellent pizza, but I tried it, for example. And to be honest with you, I did do this not that long ago. And I was like, so so. I don't like to spend a lot of money on so so. I like to have the wow factor if I'm going to get something. But that is me. And that is just a small example. Now, let's say that a person pays about $28 for a full pizza pie. Of course, nothing duplicates the pizza that you get out from a pizzeria. We all know that. We all agree with that. Okay. Although some people's homemade pizza I've actually tried is way better than the outside. That's been my experience. But everybody else's food always tastes better somehow magically. Maybe because they cooked it. I'm just saying. And we didn't have to clean up after it. But this is true. There are things that we could take down the price. If we understand that, for example, if our budget is tight, okay, we can't always go for the fresh basil and the fresh oregano and the fresh, the highest quality of Parmesan cheese. We can't always get the Parmigiano Reggiano, you know what I mean? The good one that you grate. So sometimes we have to be okay in that piece with the powdery one. I've had no problem with the powdery one in the green can. I'm totally good with that. And it is very reasonable, and the store brands are totally comparable. Okay. So here, that's an area where you're going to save a ton of money. Okay. If you throw away the fuss budget attitude, for example, and you're okay with the store brand powdery Parmesan cheese, it tastes pretty good. So let's say we knock that one down a few bucks, right? Good. Then, for example, the need to understand that we do not have to spend $8 on a jar of tomato sauce. I'm sorry. Sorry, folks. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble. I know there are a lot of people out there that's so aware that that $8 jar of tomato sauce is like the absolute greatest. I'm not saying it's not delicious, but in my budget, I would kind of consider it a luxury when I could take a can of tomato sauce. And by the way, before I forget to remind you again, when you make pizza, you don't drown it in tomato sauce. It doesn't require a lot of tomato sauce, like when you make pasta, where it needs a little more sauce. So you see where I'm going with that? It's a different ball game. When you make pizza, you'd be surprised and amazed. You need like really a whole lot less when you eyeball it. I'm just saying. So why would I spend a whole bunch of money on sauce that I don't need a lot of? I'm just thinking of me, but I'm just trying to demonstrate ways to scale down the cost of something. So instead, I could get those little smaller cans of sauce, which generally I have actually paid as low as 40 cents for a small can. Oh, yes, there's a slight bit of work to it. Big deal. You throw in your own favorite dried herbs. If I'm going to make a pizza sauce, what is the main, two main, three main components, if you think about it, of the flavor of a pizza sauce? Oregano, garlic powder, all right? Oregano, garlic powder. Some people put maybe like about a teaspoon of oil in that mixture. Some other people put a little salt and pepper. Or some people put just a couple of shakes of that green canned powdery cheese, and they got themselves a delicious sauce, pizza sauce for what? Like 40 cents to 50 cents. I am not kidding. As opposed to $8 for a whole jar that you don't need. You see where I'm going with this. We tend to overspend because we tend to overconsume. Let that sink in for a minute. We tend to overspend. Why? Because we tend to overconsume. Have you ever been in a situation, for example, where your eyes are literally bigger than your stomach? Ah, you go somewhere, right? And by the way, that's another reason why never ever shop at the grocery store if you're hungry. Please take a snack bar with you to stave off your hunger pangs. I'm not even kidding you. I really mean it. Even if it's one of those packages, those cheese and cracker packages or the peanut butter cracker, something to shut it off, shut it down. Then you're satisfied, at least reasonably, from the hunger pangs, and then you go into the grocery store. Because when we are hungry, our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, and eventually our eyes are bigger than our wallets. What? Yes. So if we are on a particularly tight budget, okay, we want to keep, under budget for our grocery shopping, okay? And I want to throw in a suggestion for grocery shopping budget towards the end of this video. I hope I remember to do it. So, by scaling down the ingredients, now the shredded mozzarella, all right, that could go on sale, the famous brands that you used to, right? But they're generally basically all the same. They usually say low moisture. Sometimes you might get the part skim. If you get anything that's skim, it's harder to melt. Not impossible. If it's partially skim, if it's completely skim, it's not going to melt. There's no fat in it. Okay. If it's like zero fat in it, it's not going to melt right the way you like it, like ooey and gooey. So have a little fat in it. But I could tell you this much. The prices of those shredded mozzarella in the bag at the store run generally about $1.39. And in most families' cases, that is so affordable. So if you can make your cheese pizza, for example, with the inexpensive store version of the already done up for you, you don't even have to shred it up mozzarella, so easy peasy. Now, suppose you can't afford, you want like the flavor of smokiness on top of your pizza, but you can't afford in your weekly grocery budget a $4.49 to $5 bag of the sliced pepperoni. Do not fret, do not fear. You might have something at home that would be a great swap out. So if you happen to have those done up bacon bits at home, they're already cooked, they're in a bag. You might have some left over at home. So you could put cut up bacon pieces on top as opposed to pepperoni to give it that smoky flavor. How many of you thought of that one? Bet not. So, by using the dry ingredients that you already have, by working with your dried oregano, and you could get those at the dollar store. And by the way, you could also use garlic salt if you're out of garlic powder. Totally fine. Just use less, taste it, whatever. So you don't overboard it on the sodium flavor type thing. We just reduced the cost of pizza for like a song. Okay, let's talk about the bottom of it. Years ago, I don't know if it still exists, but I am having trouble in this area finding it. I used to buy a crust, and I don't get an extra dime for saying it, called Boboli. Am I saying this properly? Boboli, Boboli. Boboli, I believe is how it's spelled. And it's already cooked up. Just throw your toppings on it and toss it in the oven. If you can still get that in your location, great. They were great. So I don't know if it still exists. I can't find them around here anyway. But I had no problem with those. They came in like bigger size, like the regular size, big one, then that smaller ones. There's another thing that I like to use, and it's pizza bread, Pita. Now, if you enjoy an extremely thin crust pizza, you could use the Pita bread. But when you throw that whole thing in the oven, okay, here's the trick with that. And you could do it in your air fryer, by the way, 350 for about 5-6 minutes. But here's how you do it. You get your pizza bread, Pita bread. First, you add your shredded mozzarella. You don't put the sauce first. No. First, you cover it with shredded mozzarella. Then you top with a decent amount, not too much. I would say even practically scant, somewhere between medium and scant amount of tomato sauce. And if there's any other topping, just throw that in your air fryer. For me, it works between, excuse me, please, about 5 to 6 minutes at 350 in my air fryer. If you do in your oven, do the same thing. You could put a piece of parchment paper or a piece of aluminum foil if you do it in your oven. But since it's the summer now, I'd much rather work with my air fryer, like practically live on my air fryer the whole time during the summer. Or my slow cooker. Okay, I'm just saying. But that is such a fast way. If you happen to have leftover fresh ingredients, you can always add that like towards the end. Okay. But you really have reduced the cost of your pizza. I mean, I went into it here very, very graphically, deeply, and explaining it down to the minor thing. Why? Because I want you to save some money. You don't have to spend $28 on a pizza. Okay. And of course, the one in the big box store for 10 or 11 bucks, whatever it is, that's a deal. To me, that's a deal. I never had it, but it looks really good. And whatever is left over of that, wrap it up and freeze it. We believe in zero food waste. Am I right? Or am I right? So bring down the cost of meal favorites because it is a great frugal living choice. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate everyone's time. Don't forget to come back every single morning at 5 a.m. for some more tips and tricks, quick tips on how to save money. And I really do appreciate if you could click like, share, subscribe. And as always, super thanks are completely appreciated. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day.